let us understand what is a reciprocal promise. Now, in the last example, we see that there are two people who are making promises to each other. Both the promises you can see are reciprocal to each other. The first promise is made to the other person, and the other person in turn also makes the promise. He makes a second promise. So first promise forms the consideration for the second promise. The second promise forms the consideration for first promise. So we can say both are reciprocal, both are opposite, both are for each other, both are made against each other. So we call such promises which are made as a consideration against each other, we call them as reciprocal promises. But before going to reciprocal promises, let us understand act. What is an act and what is a promise? What is the difference between the two? Now I'll give you an example. Here is a person A and a person B. Now there is a contract between these two persons. What is a contract? A said, I'll sell cycle to you. B said, I'll pay money to you. Let's say 1000 rupees. A is selling a cycle to B and B in turn is paying 1000 rupees. Now they both are doing it at the time of making the contract. So now when they are doing it at the time of making the contract, this becomes an act because they are acting there and then. They are acting right away. So when the promise or the performance is done right away, it is called as an act. Whatever you have promised, whatever you have agreed in the contract, if you perform it right away, it becomes the act. So you can see there is an act on the part of both. However, if I change the example just a bit, if I tell you that B will pay A, let's say after a month. So A is giving the cycle now and B will pay A after a month. So in this case, we can say that there is an act on the part of A and there is a promise on the part of B. Because B is now making a promise that he will pay him 1000 after a year. So now, not a year, after a month. So now he is making a promise. He is not doing an act right away, but he is making a promise. However, A is acting right away. A is doing what he has agreed in the contract now. So what A does becomes an act, what B does becomes a promise. I'll change the example one more time. Now A tells B that you pay me in advance. You pay me now and I'll deliver the cycle after 10 days. Now A will deliver the cycle after 10 days and B will pay him now. So what B does will become an act. What A has done will become a promise because he promises to deliver the cycle 1 month after the date or 10 days after the date. So you can see that what is done at the time of contract becomes an act. What is done at the time of at a later time becomes a promise. Now one final time I'll change this example and you have to answer. What if both of them agree that the cycle will be delivered after a month and the payment will also be made after a month. So now, what do you think is A's part here, and what do you think is in B's part here? What A is doing is an act or it is a promise. At the same time, what B is doing is an act or a promise. Yes, both of them are making a promise because both are promising that they will do something in future. So presently they are making a promise, they are not doing anything. A is not providing the cycle to B, B is not giving money to A. Both will be doing it in future, so now they are promising. So both are making a promise. So this is the basic difference between act and promise. Now let us go back to reciprocal promise and see what are the types of the promise.